When our parents left my younger brother and me alone, I presented him with an irresistible proposition that would set the stage for an unforgettable adventure, one of the most thrilling days of our lives. I'm Emily, and I never envisioned that I would. In a moment that feels almost like a scene from a cherished tale, I recall the bond that tied my little brother Sam and me together as we navigated our childhood. With a 5-year age difference, our connection was steadfast and unwavering. Younger than me, always the one I looked after, shielding from bullies and lending a hand with studies. Yet, as time flowed on, life started to pull us apart as I embarked on my college journey. As time went on, I started working while Sam was still navigating his high school years, searching for his identity. Our parents were perpetually engaged in their challenging professions, which afforded scant moments for family. They were not neglectful, but rather, they were simply not present. As soon as I reached the age where I could drive and handle responsibilities at home, I eagerly embraced many of the care for Sam was never a burden. It was a joy, for he brought a warmth that made every moment delightful. To be around, always cheerful and eager to satisfy, caring for him it was just a part of our essence. Yet, everything transformed once I left home. At the age of 23, I found myself settling into a humble apartment on the other side of town, a place I didn't dedicate enough time to my home, and a sense of guilt tugged at me each time I thought about all that I was overlooking. Sam's life, the carefree little brother I once knew, was slowly transforming. Someone I barely recognized, and the pain of it cut deeper than I was willing to acknowledge. One weekend, our parents declared they would embark on a 3-day business trip, leaving Sam to navigate the solitude alone. Mother's voice was laced with worry as she asked, "Can you stick with him? Mature enough to manage the situation, yet your presence brings me comfort." I agreed, largely out of a sense of guilt. There wasn't anything grand on my agenda, and sharing moments with Sam would surely help close the gap between us. As I stepped through the threshold, Sam welcomed me with his unmistakable crooked smile. With a warm grin, the stranger remarked, "It's been ages since our paths last crossed," as he playfully sketched my likeness into a brief embrace. Yeah, I replied, rolling my eyes but unable to suppress a smile. "Did you miss me?" He grinned, stepping aside to let me enter. The house looked just as I remembered, the same neat, yet it carried a subtle hint of lemons in the air. Stepping inside felt oddly surreal, as if I were transported back to my teenage years. Years ago, that first night unfolded with hours of heartfelt conversation. Sam shared tales of school, his companions, and his aspiration for college as I shared insights about my own journey. It brought a sense of warmth, reminiscent of the past, to bridge the distance that had grown between us over the years. For a time, it felt as though nothing had shifted. Yet, as the evening unfolded, I started to observe aspects of Sam that I had once missed. He was no longer a young boy, once small, had grown taller, his shoulders now broader, and his voice resonated with newfound depth. He radiated a calm assurance and wisdom that was unlike anything I had encountered before, and this caught me off guard. I found it challenging to reconcile the child I once safeguarded with the young man sitting before me. As supper unfolded, Sam suggested we dive into a movie. With a knowing smile, he mentioned something intriguing while flipping through the options. As I sift through the choices on the television, I find none of those tedious dramas that captivate your interest. "Excuse me," I playfully feigned offense. "My selection of films is..." With a sly grin, he settled on a comedy we had watched countless times before. As the opening titles rolled, he settled onto the couch beside me and stretched out his long legs. For a while, It was easy to lose track of all else and simply embrace the present. We chuckled at well-worn jokes, reciting lines we both had etched in our minds and found comfort in. At a leisurely rhythm, yet occasionally I caught Sam's gaze upon me, not in a peculiar yet chilling way. Yet there was an intensity that sent a flutter through my stomach. I brushed it aside, convincing myself that I found myself caught in a web of thoughts. After all, he is my brother. The way he gazed at me lingered in my mind. It wasn't strange, was it? Was it present when the film concluded? Sam stretched and let out a yawn, saying, I'm off to grab a drink, he said, rising from his seat and making his way to the kitchen. I lingered on the couch, aimlessly scrolling through my phone. Moments later, his voice echoed through the room. Hey Emily, do you want anything? Sure, I replied. Surprise me. When he returned, cradling two cups of cola in his hands, he settled back down, this time as he leaned in a little closer. He handed me one. His knee brushed against mine, sending an unexpected thrill coursing through me that I couldn't quite comprehend. Thank you, I said, striving to keep my voice steady. He merely shrugged and took a sip. Not an issue. We lingered in silence for a moment, accompanied only by the soft hum of the television enveloped the room as I attempted to concentrate on my phone. Yet his presence was oddly captivating. I could sense the warmth radiating from him, accompanied by the gentle brush of his knee against mine. I told myself it meant nothing. It was simply, though I felt close, a small, restless part of me remained uncertain. So, Sam remarked, suddenly shattering the stillness, one might ponder, what is life truly like in the bustling metropolis? Do you ever feel a longing for something else? It was a simple question, yet the intensity in his gaze held me captive. Yes. There are moments, I confess, as I set my phone aside. However, the circumstances have shifted. I find pleasure in my own sanctuary, you see. He acknowledged this with a nod and leaned in closer. With my back against the couch, I grasped the reality of it all. Yet, it feels peculiar not having you here. In this stillness, your absence echoes. A faint smile graces my lips as I long for the moments we shared. Here, sometimes, I said, but things change. People grow up. Yes, he mumbled, his voice trailing off, more subdued and seemingly melancholic. I guess there's a certain weight in the way he expressed it. My chest tightened as the night unfolded, our conversation weaving deeper into the fabric of the evening, chuckling over fond memories and playfully ribbing one another about the little things. The peculiar tension I had sensed earlier slowly faded away, giving way to a comforting warmth that brought back memories of how deeply I longed for this, how much I longed for him. As the weekend drew to a close and I found myself behind the wheel, a profound realization washed over me. Some connections are unyielding, transcending distance and time, remaining intact regardless of life's journey. Sam was more than just my younger brother. He was my anchor, the sole constant in my... As I made my way back to my apartment, I vowed to myself that I would not allow such. As time drifted by, the moment of our reunion arrived. I stole a quick look at him, observing how, deeply immersed in thought, he presented a visage of intensity. A subtle furrow marked his forehead, and the solemn expression graced his features, capturing my attention. It was a sight I had never encountered before. It gave him an air of age and maturity that left me feeling quite unsettled. In that fleeting instant, he transformed in my eyes from merely my younger brother to a unique individual in his own right, filled with his own trials and intricacies. That understanding caught me off guard. As I shifted just enough to break the stillness, I responded, maintaining my tone. Bright days are ahead. You'll soon embark on a journey filled with new friendships and a world of possibilities. An alternative way of living. Maybe, he remarked with a casual gesture, yet it remains distinct. You have always been someone I could confide in, even during the darkest of times. With a furrowed brow, I repeated, What do you mean? He paused, his attention flitting to the floor before coming back to me. It was just after Dad began his full-time job and Mom became so occupied that I felt as if I was. Often I found myself alone, yet your presence lingered. You brought simplicity to my struggles, your words resonating deeply. It struck me deeply, and a tide of shame enveloped me. I was unaware of the profound impact my absence had influenced him. The extent of his dependence on me remained unspoken. Thus I'm sorry, Sam, I murmured. I didn't know you felt that way. He simply shrugged. Once more, a subtle smile tugged at the edge of his lips. It is not your fault. You were navigating your own challenges. Yet, I am truly pleased to have you here at this moment, I responded, extending my hand to gently squeeze his shoulder and remind him that I'm always here for him if he needs anything, right? Indeed, he remarked, his smile broadening. I see. Just for a moment. For a time, all felt as it should, smooth, effortless, and in harmony. Yet, as my hand came to rest on, as I leaned closer, the atmosphere thickened with an unspoken energy. And the moment our gazes locked, I felt the weight of the world around us. Something in his expression shifted, prompting me to instinctively pull back my hand. A warmth spread across my cheeks as I averted my gaze for a moment. Clearing my throat, I began to explain, we should probably get some rest. It is. As time slipped away, he nodded in agreement, stretching his limbs while standing tall. A splendid notion indeed. With purpose, he made his move. As she moved toward the steps, she paused at the bottom, casting a glance back at me. Good night, Emily. Good night, I replied. As he ascended the stairs with a playful grin, I let out a gentle sigh, only to discover that I had been holding my breath. My mind was swirling with thoughts, confused and restless. I felt an undeniable shift in the air between us. Yet the exact nature of that change eluded me. Switched off the television and made my way to the kitchen to rinse my glass. The atmosphere was oddly serene, punctuated only by the soft hum of the refrigerator. I lingered by the window for a while, absorbing the stillness around me. As I gaze upon the silhouettes of trees dancing in the moonlight, a whirlwind of ideas ignites within me. As I finally settled into bed, sleep eluded me. I tossed and turned, lost in thoughts that stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Endless moments spent gazing at the ceiling, seeking to unravel the peculiar unease that had enveloped it all. Sam's words, his lingering stares, the way he addressed me, it all felt charged with unspoken tales. It was significant, though I couldn't quite articulate why. The following morning, I found myself awakening to a distant melody wafted up from the kitchen, gently stirring me from my slumber. As I sat up, still wrapped in the haze of sleep, I glanced at the clock and was taken aback by how late it had become. The sun had already reached its zenith, and in a flurry, I'd done some. Adorned in my attire, I descended the staircase, drawn by the enchanting melody that Sam was immersed in. The kitchen buzzed with life, a melody from the radio weaving through the air as he crafted breakfast. Was dressed casually in a t-shirt and sweatpants, his hair tousled from sleep. He brought to mind the small boy he would often playfully tease and choke hair, yet there was a part of him that held back. With age came a newfound confidence that set him apart. It took me by surprise. As I arrived, he greeted me with his gaze lifted. Looking up, he made eggs. Want some? Sure, I replied, sitting down at the table. Thanks. He set them down. A dish was placed before me as he settled into the seat across. His effortless smile drew my attention, making it a challenge to maintain my train of thought. For a time, we dined in tranquil seclusion, the gentle sunlight pouring through the windows cast a warm, golden glow throughout the room. This is good, Sam declared suddenly. Shattering the stillness, your presence brings back the nostalgia of yesteryears. And I found myself in agreement. With a subtle smile, it does? Yet, even as those words left my lips, I couldn't dispel the lingering feeling. There was an unsettling shift. The once fluid bond we shared was substituted with an inexplicable presence that stirred something deep within my chest. As the tension gripped me, my thoughts surged like a wild river, impossible to dismiss no matter how fervently I wished to turn away. The morning drifted by, filled with the hum of everyday chores and familiar rhythms. Yet an unspoken tension lingered in the air. Amidst the lingering tension, Sam seemed unfazed, whistling a carefree tune to the rhythm of the radio as he cleaned the kitchen. As I busied myself with anything that caught my eye, anything to keep my mind anchored. Each glance, each word exchanged between us carried a weight that felt more profound than ever. Yet as lunch approached, a sense of agitation washed over me, and Sam suggested, as I settled in for another film, the thought of remaining still began to stir a restlessness within me. Why don't we take a walk? I suggested, believing that the fresh air would help clear my mind. Sam grinned. Sounds excellent. Let's go. I laced up my sneakers and stepped outside, where we strolled through the serene neighborhood, embraced by towering trees, and in a landscape of well-trimmed lawns, time appeared to stand still. Untouched by the passage of days, we found ourselves in a place where the essence of permanence lingered, a backdrop to our unfolding tale. Engaging in a relaxed dialogue, we chatted side by side about his classes, my job, and the neighbor's overly enthusiastic dog. It felt effortless once more. It felt like stepping back into a melody we had long forgotten. Even amidst our laughter and conversation, I found myself unable to shake the feeling that observed the subtle touch of his shoulder against mine, or the way his gaze held on a moment longer when he believed I was unaware. I shared, myself, a whirlwind of thoughts swirling around. Yet, beneath it all, I couldn't escape As we drew near to the park at the end of the street, the sight of the swings beckoned us with a sense of nostalgia. The weathered basketball court stirred echoes of childhood in Sam's mind. As he settled onto one of the swings, his long legs nearly grazing the earth, he beckoned me to come closer. I paused for a moment, then settled into the swing next to him, the metal chains whispering gently as I leaned back. This place hasn't changed at all, he remarked, his voice laced with a wistful longing for the past. Indeed, I murmured as the memories surged within me. The moment carried a profound heaviness, filled with silent expressions and the focus I struggled to articulate. Beaming softly, I carried on. It seems as though we lingered in this place for half of our youth. That is, with a chuckle, he responded. You always insisted on pushing me on the swings, despite my repeated assurances that I didn't need it. I could do it myself. I smiled back, recalling how you would always leap off and land right in the mud. He chuckled and shook his head. Mother insisted you promised to shield me from mischief. His laughter dwindled and his gaze shifted to the horizon, and the somber expression settled upon his face. You were always keeping an eye on me. Naturally, I replied warmly. You are my little brother, For a moment, he remained silent, his expression deep in thought, as if weaving a tale in his mind. With a slight narrowing of his eyes, he added almost hesitantly, Have you ever thought about how different everything might have turned out if Dad had been around more? The question caught me by surprise as I glanced at. He hesitated, uncertainty clouding his thoughts. After a brief moment, I finally responded, I suppose, but you blossomed beautifully. Remember, his approval isn't necessary for you to embrace your own worth. Our eyes locked, and in that moment, in an instant, the unguarded emotion in his gaze struck a chord deep within me, causing a pang in my heart. Thank you, he uttered, whispered gently. This means a lot. A silence enveloped us for a moment after that, letting the quiet envelop the scene. The sounds from the park danced around, with leaves whispering and birds engaging in lively conversation. A delicate squeak emanated from the swings, a moment of tranquility enveloping me, though the weight of the world still lingered in the air. Amidst the lingering echoes of his earlier remarks, Sam finally stood up, brushing off his hands against his slacks. We should head back, he remarked, a hint of concern in his voice. It's getting colder. I know, I replied, standing up to my feet and falling in step with him. The journey home felt more drawn out than ever before. The silence that lingered between us had shifted from a source of comfort to a weighty presence, filled with unspoken thoughts that eluded our grasp. As we arrived at the house, a wave of anticipation washed over me, urging me to escape to the guest room and find some clarity. Yet, Sam had other plans in mind. With a mischievous smile, he proposed, let's embark on an adventure. Grab a controller. This evening, the one who falls short will take on the task of washing the dishes. You're in, I declared, filled with joy for the moment. For the next hour, we became completely immersed in the game, filled with spirited competition and joyful laughter. Lifting our spirits as always, Sam triumphed in most of the rounds, but I found a way to snatch a few wins, much to his chagrin. By the conclusion, the tension had eased, at least for the moment. I am still not doing the dishes, I declared, arms crossed in a playful display of mock disdain. As we powered down the console, a chuckle escaped him. All right, I'll give you a pass this time, he said with a playful grin. The remainder of the evening unfolded without much fanfare. We shared a meal and engaged in conversation about We shared our plans for the next day, weaving them into the fabric of our typical bedtime ritual. Yet, as the home transformed, as the night deepened, a hush fell over the surroundings, and the strange atmosphere from earlier crept back in, despite my attempts to shake it off. Disregard it? Yet I couldn't dismiss the sensation that something was shifting in the space between us. Later that night, as I reclined in bed, my gaze fixed on the ceiling. From the ceiling above, a faint squeak echoed, drifting in from the floors just beyond my chamber. My heart raced and I halted, straining to hear the gentle footsteps drawing near. Then came a delicate knock. Emily, Sam's. Her voice wavered and I felt my heart race as I sat up. Yeah, can I come inside? I asked, pausing to glance at the clock. A sense of stillness enveloped the late hour. The house lay in a hushed tranquility, save for the soft murmur of the refrigerator echoes from downstairs. What troubles me? I need. In a hushed tone, he began to speak, his words barely rising above a whisper. I inhaled gently, allowing the moment to envelop me, and I swung with legs dangling over the edge of the bed. A voice beckoned, okay, come inside. The door creaked open, revealing Sam. He stepped inside, his expression a mystery as he closed the door behind him. Leaning against it, He took a moment to gather his thoughts. Just before crossing the room, I settled on the edge of the bed. "What's happening?" I asked, maintaining a steady tone despite the tension in the air. The anxious knot in my stomach tightened as he held his gaze, not responding immediately. Bound to the ground, his shoulders tense. At last, he confessed, I've been reflecting deeply on our connection and the significance you hold in my life." His words. My heart raced as I fought to keep my expression steady. "Sam, you are my brother," I said. "With careful consideration, we undoubtedly hold great significance to each other. This essence defines what family truly is. It is not merely," he mumbled, his voice barely rising above a whisper, "you've always been there for me, like no one else has. You understand me, Sam." As I began to share my thoughts, he cut in. "I don't want to make things awkward," he said, "but I need you to grasp the depth of what you mean to me. I'm uncertain what I would do without you." His words lingered in the air, heavy with significance that eluded my understanding. As our silence stretched between us, as the tension peaked, I fixed my gaze upon him. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. "Sam, softly I spoke, my tone a blend of warmth and authority. "I doubt you truly grasp the depth of this. This is a challenging moment for me to absorb." His expression wavered and his brows were upon together. "I am not attempting to," he remarked calmly, "make things tough. I just needed to say it to let it out." I inhaled deeply, running my fingers through my hair in an attempt to steady my racing thoughts. "You hold a significant place in my heart as well," spoke with a hint of hesitation. "But we are siblings, Sam. We have always been there for each other, for that is the essence of family." His gaze grew distant, a hint of emotion flickering within. "It's deeper than that," he replied. His voice trembled, a whisper of uncertainty. "You know it is I," he said, as I shook my head, feeling the weight in my chest. "You're just bewildered," I said, even as the words slipped from my lips. They felt an emptiness within. We have both endured so much, particularly with Mom and Dad away so frequently. It's only natural to feel a sense of closeness that arises from this situation. He asserted that it wasn't confusion. His voice now carries a sense of calm. "This is the essence of my feelings, and I recognize that this may seem unusual, yet I cannot feign that it isn't genuine." I rose from my bed and started to wander around the small room, trying to unravel the tangled web of my thoughts, entangled in the wish to comfort him while grappling with a profound feeling. Realizing that something had gone horribly wrong, I turned to face him and spoke with conviction. "Sam, we can't keep having this. It is not fair to any of us," he said, his expression faltering for a moment. A brief pause hung in the air. A shadow of anguish crossed his features as he murmured, "I'm not asking for anything. I simply had to share this with you." The genuine earnestness in his voice took me by surprise. I inhaled deeply and settled into my seat. My shoulders sagged, burdened by the gravity of the moment. "I don't know how to answer," I confessed. I whispered my admission. "You don't have to," he responded, his voice firm. I could no longer hold it in. The room was stifling, the air thick and heavy. Breath came hard, each inhale a struggle. The weight of the tension hung heavy in the air, a palpable force that made me yearn for release. Fix all that has been broken. I longed to return to a time when life felt simpler, yet the path to that moment remains elusive. We must discover a way forward. With a steady resolve, I finally declared, "You are my brother, Sam. That bond will remain unbroken." He nodded slowly, yet the uncertainty in his eyes lingered. "I do not want to lose you," he confessed, are the only person who truly understands me. You won't lose me, I assured him, my voice steady and soothing. Yet it's essential to set clear boundaries. We mustn't dwell on it any longer. The atmosphere was heavy, yet it seemed necessary. After a prolonged silence, Sam stood up. To his feet, he moved with careful deliberation, whispering, "I apologize, I never." It was meant to evoke discomfort. "I see," I replied softly, my voice steady. "My dear Sam, I'm not filled with rage towards you, but we must tread carefully for the sake of us both." He nodded once more, lingering at the entrance. For a fleeting moment, he seemed caught in a web of uncertainty, torn between the choice to remain or to depart. As he finally emerged, the soft click of the door sealing shut behind him resonated yet the weight in my chest lingered on, refusing to fade away. As I lingered in that moment, time stretched endlessly, my gaze fixed upon the void that surrounded me. In the aftermath of the moment, I found myself grappling with an unshakable feeling. Though words eluded me, a profound shift lingered in the air, signaling that something significant had transformed between us. A shift was in the air, and I sensed it. The next morning unfolded with an unusual stillness. The whole house seemed transformed, as though the very air had shifted while Sam slept. Did not join me for breakfast, and I did not compel him. I reassured myself that like me, there was a need for some space, a belief that everything would eventually settle back into its usual rhythm. Yet, as the hours drifted by, the stillness lingered. The weight between us grew denser, harder to overlook. By the afternoon, I had made up my mind to. As I stepped into the room, I found him perched on the edge of his bed, headphones enveloping his ears. The moment he caught sight of me, a spark of recognition flickered in his eyes. With a gentle knock, he removed them and offered me a soft, hesitant smile. "Hello," I said as I stepped inside. "How are you holding up?" He shrugged, lowering his gaze. With my gaze fixed on the floor, he mumbled, "I am fine." I took a seat beside him, leaving the silence to linger. There's a delicate distance between us, just enough to feel at ease. I acknowledge that this moment feels strange, but I yearn for it to evolve. In that moment, he expressed a desire for resolution, saying, "We must find a way to navigate this. I don't wish for things to remain as they are." His voice, a mere murmur, carried uncertainty. "I'm just not sure how to solve it," he said. "We'll sort it out." "It will take some time," I said, a small smile playing on my lips. "But we'll get there." He gazed at me, his expression warming. "Thank you," he said sincerely, "for not." In a moment of panic, I reminded you, "I'm your sister." My voice was steady, filled with assurance. "I will always have your back." For the first time in days, a hint of relief washed over the atmosphere. Though it was but a fleeting moment, we continued to weave his narrative, effortlessly shifting towards more cheerful topics like his classes and friends, and plans for the weekend. By the time I departed from his room, the burden on my chest had eased just a bit. Yet, as the home transformed, once more, the night fell into silence and an unsettling sensation lingered in the air. Sam's words echoed in my mind, heavy with unspoken emotions, leaving me with a sense that something was amiss. The events of the past few days danced in my thoughts, stirring a sense of unease and anticipation within me. Despite my efforts to convince myself otherwise, deep down I understood that this was far from finished. The house was still that night, yet my mind was anything but calm. I lay awake, gazing at the ceiling, my thoughts swirling like a tempest. As the echoes of Sam's remarks reverberated, they danced around his candor, revealing layers of vulnerability and depth. The weight of all he had confessed lingered in the air. I found myself repeating that soon everything would settle back into its usual rhythm. This was merely a challenging chapter that we would eventually overcome. Yet, beneath the surface, I wasn't quite so sure. As the clock struck midnight, I caught the soft sound of footsteps echoing in the hallway. My heart raced. As they approached, a sense of tension filled the air, and they paused just beyond my threshold. I sat up, gripping With a deep breath, I paused. Then, a soft and careful knock echoed, reminiscent of the night before Emily. Sam's voice was a whisper in the air. I inhaled deeply and I steadied my breath and replied softly, "Yeah," I murmured. "Can I come inside?" My heart raced as I glanced at the clock. The later casting a shadow over the darkened home. There was a stillness around us, yet an undeniable force within me urged me to accept. "Okay," I said in response. In a gentle whisper, "Come inside." The door creaked open, and Sam stepped in. He seemed, with a sense of discomfort, his hands delved deep into the confines of his pockets, while his shoulders subtly curled inward. He lingered for a moment, allowing the silence to envelop him as he closed the door softly, leaning against it for a heartbeat. He then made his way to the seat at the edge of my bed. He murmured an apology, his voice barely above a whisper. "I come to understand that my presence here is unwarranted." "It's all right," I reassured myself hastily, even as my heart raced in protest. "What occupies your thoughts?" He paused once more, his gaze locked onto the floor. "I've been reflecting on my earlier words." A sense of worry crept in, as if I had muddled things up. "But you didn't," I asserted with conviction, leaning in closer. "Sam, I promised you we would find a way, but it will require patience." "I understand," he said, his voice steady. Wavering, I find myself ensnared in the labyrinth of my own thoughts, struggling to uncover the path that leads me out. I reached out and gently squeezed his shoulder. "You're not alone," I told him. In hushed tones, "We shall navigate this journey side by side." He lifted his eyes, his gaze ensnaring the moment. The intensity in his gaze stirred a strange tightening within me. "You have always been there for me," he replied, his voice rich with emotion. Emotion swirled within me, particularly in moments of solitude. I'm not certain how I would respond. "Without you, there's no need to ponder," I spoke softly, maintaining my composure. "I shall remain right here, and for quite some time, neither of us will part ways." The silence that enveloped us was dense, laden with emotions that neither of us dared to voice. Sam's expression was a canvas of raw emotion and vulnerability, a sight I had never witnessed before. Before it left me speechless, I yearned for everything to return to its former glory. His voice quivered as he spoke. "I do not want to lose you." "You won't," I promised him. Though my voice wavered, I knew we had to establish limits. "We cannot allow." He nodded slowly, a troubled look crossing his face. "I know he began, trailing off into the weight of his thoughts. "I am trying. I know you are," I replied gently, and that is what. The atmosphere in the room shifted, not fading away but transforming into something more subdued. Stifling, Sam did not take his leave as I had anticipated. Instead, he lingered, motionless, his gaze locked onto mine, searching for something just beyond reach. The air between us crackled with energy, each breath amplified by the stillness that enveloped us. At that moment, I addressed Sam with a steady yet resolute voice, saying, We can't continue to go in circles like this. It's not good for either of us. I understand, he murmured softly, yet I find myself at a crossroads, uncertain of how to move forward. The idea of letting it go lingers in my mind. His honesty took me by surprise, leaving me momentarily speechless. I found myself leaning in slightly, as if closing the physical distance could bridge the emotional chasm between us. Perhaps, with a contemplative tone, I proposed, "You must confront it directly?" He scowled, a trace of confusion etched on his face. "What do you mean?" I hesitated, my heart racing as I gazed. In moments where the right words eluded me, I found myself speaking slowly. The path ahead was clear, and the only way was to move forward, to stop evading it, to confront it completely. His eyes held mine, his brow furrowed as he absorbed my words. "What are you saying?" he asked, trailing off. In a moment of hesitation, I gently interjected, suggesting that maybe holding everything within isn't the best path forward. Embrace the emotions that stir within you. Only by allowing yourself to truly experience them can you move forward on his journey. Her expression unveiled a glimmer of understanding. "Emily, it's all right." With a gentle touch, I placed my hand over his, whispering softly, "This is just a fleeting moment. Nothing more." At first, he stood motionless, his gaze locked onto mine, the weight of the moment palpable in the air. With a gentle pressure enveloping us, he leaned in with a hint of uncertainty. Our lips finally connected, creating a moment of shared breath. The gentlest touch, fleeting yet brimming with feelings that eluded our words. Into words, it stopped just as suddenly as it started, leaving behind a profound stillness that it felt heavy in the air as Sam recoiled, his expression a blend of disbelief and worry. "I apologize," he said. He stammered, his voice unsteady. "I did not mean—" "No, Sam," I cut him off, maintaining his voice steady. He held my gaze, searching for something. A subtle shift in my demeanor, a delicate smile graced my lips as I murmured, "Damn, I have a pretty handsome brother." I found myself saying, surprising even myself. He paused for a moment, then leaned in closer once more. This time, the kiss unfolded with a profound depth and unwavering certainty as we ventured into uncharted territory. We paused for a moment, reflecting on the limits we had just surpassed, before I shifted my hand to another place, propelling us past the boundary we had already crossed. His eyes widened, reflecting my own. In a moment of disbelief, we stood our ground. Neither of us retreated. We allowed the unfolding events to take their course, silent witnesses to what transpired. Anything we embarked upon transcended our wildest expectations. Our actions were undeniably reckless, and I couldn't help but acknowledge that truth. Yet, in that instant, it seemed flawless. It was exhilarating. When all was at peace, down we both laid there, fully conscious of the moment that had just unfolded. "Wow," Sam breathed, exhaled, breaking the stillness. I truly find myself at a loss for thoughts. "It's all right," I interjected swiftly, interrupting him. "It's finished, and we can move on." He gazed at me, his eyes brimming with unvoiced questions. That he did. He rose slowly, his actions deliberate, as if he feared the very air around him might shatter. In the delicate embrace of the evening, he leaned closer, his voice barely a breath. "Good night, Emily," I replied softly. "Good night." As he stepped out of the room, the soft click of the door closing echoed in the silence, prompting me to release a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. With a breath that trembled, my thoughts surged like a wild river. That instant, though brief, shifted the very fabric of my existence. A line had been crossed, one that could either illuminate our path or plunge us deeper into confusion. I found myself uncertain about what lay ahead, restrained yet, for the first time in days, a flicker of hope ignited within me that we might. As dawn broke, an unmistakable shift lingered in the air, a sense of lightness enveloping the house, and Sam could feel it too. Join me for breakfast, his demeanor now more at ease than it had been in days. Our conversation meandered effortlessly as we shared our plans, each thought weaving into the next with a natural ease. It was a moment of progress, and I clung to that glimmer of hope as the hours drifted by, until at last, the time came for me to say goodbye to Sam. Guided me to the entrance, where I found solace in the fact that Josh had not yet made his way back. Manage this on my own. I appreciate your support, Sam whispered, his smile soft yet sincere. It conveyed I'm really glad I did, I replied. I'll be back soon, and we can continue our conversation and resolve this. He nodded, his expression filled with hope. Yes, we will. As I drove away, the house slipped away in my rearview mirror, yet the heaviness of all that had transpired lingered, a constant companion on my journey ahead. The days to come promised challenges, yet, for the first time in what felt like ages, a sense of progress began to bloom within me, and that was sufficient for the moment. Once I returned to my apartment, life settled back into its usual rhythm. Yet, no matter how hard I endeavored to erase that night from my mind, the memories lingered. I often found myself lost in thoughts of Sam, more than I was willing to acknowledge, pondering how he was managing and whether he had received the. A few weeks later, my phone vibrated with a text from him. Hello, once more, I wish to express my gratitude. The path ahead appears more illuminated now, and I find myself in a good place. For a moment, I lingered on the message, contemplating my response. With a sense of contentment, I decided to simply take action, one step at a time. Rest assured, I am always here for you, he replied swiftly. I'm aware that I will find my way. It may not have been a complete ending, but it certainly marked a step forward, and that matters. Was sufficient for the moment? Yet, I can't help but question everything, pondering what others might think, contemplating the choices made. I wonder, was it truly wrong? Is there something I should regret? Should guilt weigh upon my heart? Indeed, it does. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Your insights would truly mean a great deal to me. Thank you. You